the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Allison Nissen. And today I am very lucky to have with me Tom Lee. Tom, why don't you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
My name is Tom Lee. I'm a retired military, retired airline, and now I write books. And my current book is a espionage/murder mystery that has just been published a couple months back and is doing quite well right now on not Google, but Amazon.
Amazon, the end all and be all for writers these days, isn't it?
Yes, it is. If you don't get on there, you're going to struggle a little bit.
Well, how was your experience getting onto Amazon?
It went very well. My publisher, Outskirts Press, had assigned me someone who walked me through the process. It took me 15, 20 minutes, and we were up and running.
Wow, that's fantastic. And tell me about Outskirt. Was it Outskirt Press?
Yes, Outskirts Press is out of Denver, Colorado, and they're an independent book publisher, and you can go to them and they can help you with everything from they can write the book for you to they'll publish the book for you, whatever you want to do, everything in between.
Well, that sounds like it's an easy way to do things if they can help you all along the way.
Yes, and they're very, well, at least for me, they were very, very helpful along the way. But I also showed up with a pretty intact manuscript that did not need a lot of work on it. So that helped the process move a little quicker too.
So you showed up with a pretty solid manuscript to begin with. What was the process like to get to that point?
Well, the writing part is really easy for me as far as writing a story down. The difficult part is the basic English and sentence structure. That's more work than fun. And you really have to concentrate, or at least I have to really concentrate on that, so you don't have the which English teachers like to say, dangling participles and things like that. And that takes a little bit of effort to make sure the sentences run smoothly and they make sense. And then you got to work on storyline and plot line, that everything matches up through the book, which is not that hard. The hard part for me was the English part, which I had to kind of go back and retrain myself from high school days on English.
Did you hire an editor?
I did. Once I got it done, I handed it off to two different people, and got their input, which was extremely valuable because there's certain things that when you do them, you don't see that they're wrong, but somebody else looks at them and goes, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And you go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. So that's where they were beneficial for me, is pointing out part of my blind spots.
Well, that's nice to have, definitely. How did you come up with the storyline for your first book?
There was actually, many years ago, there was a murder in Atlanta, Georgia, in a very affluent neighborhood. And the husband was found dead in the kitchen, and they found the wife out on the lake. And a friend of mine who was a retired UPI reporter said he would love to write a story about that, but he can't get the details wrapped up. And so I said, I can send you a 8-page story on this in a week. And he goes, no, you can't. And so I did. And he wrote back and says, wow, you got an imagination. You need to run with this. So that's what I did.
And the name of this book?
This book is called Nothing to Hide. And it's actually my second book, but it's my first genre book as far as just pure fiction.
So your first book, then you're implying that it has some nonfiction in it.
The first book was called, the title was called Turtles on the Runway and Other Flying Stories. and it was basically an anthology of my flying career and the things that happened to me along the way, and I tell it in a very tongue-in-cheek, humorous manner.
Turtles on the Runway. A turtle on the runway?
Yes, ma'am. It was one of the stories that had occurred to me during my years of flying. And it goes something like this. I'll try to make it really quick. We were down in Daytona Beach, and we were given clearance for takeoff. And about halfway down the runway, somebody came on the radio and said, "There's a turtle on the runway." Well, I mean, we're doing about 130 knots at this time, and the two of us kind of looked at each other and went, "Did we just hear that?" And about that time, we see this big old snapping turtle right in the middle of the runway trying to cross. And the look on the turtle's looking at us like, "Do not hit me." And we're thinking, "Do not hit this turtle. This is not going to go well." And right when we got to the turtle, we started flying and flew right over the top of them. And we got to laughing so hard. We were 50 miles over the ocean before we could talk on the radio, because they kept asking us, "Did you see the turtle? Did you see the turtle?" Well, we saw the turtle, but we missed them, thank goodness. So that was one of the stories, and it ended up becoming the title of the book.
It's a great title. It makes you want to pick it up and peruse the pages, because when something's clever like that, it makes you go, "Huh, that's interesting."
Yes, and everybody who's read it, they just sit there and laugh, and they come back to me and go, "That's the funniest thing I've read in years about flying." So that's always a nice pat on the back.
And so your second book, which is Nothing to Hide, how did you come up with that title?
Well, I was with one of the editors, and the working title was Murder in Georgia, and that just didn't flow. And the editor said, that doesn't have a ring to it. And so right in the very end of the book, by the 2 pages before the end, there's a line by the main character that he's asked by another character, "You have nothing to hide, right?" Well, the character has everything to hide. So, and his answer is, "No, I have nothing to hide." And we were going through the book trying to look at something, and we got to that page, and he goes, "There's your title right there," because it just really epitomizes what the book is all about. There's all these hidden things that nobody wants anybody to find out, but ultimately they find out. And of course, nobody has anything to hide, when in reality, everybody has something to hide.
Absolutely. Isn't that the truth? Oh, I shouldn't say that out loud, should I?
But it's the truth, right?
Yes, it is. It is. We try to keep some things to ourselves. So, Tom, tell me about how you began writing.
Well, I had been sent, I volunteered to go to Vietnam. There was a gentleman over there that wanted to start an airline, a capitalist airline in a communist country. And if that doesn't appeal to somebody, you have no imagination. But so I went over there with 15 other people, and we started this airline that became known as Air Mekong Airlines. Well, people back home said, "Hey, stay in contact with us. Here's my email. Tell us what's going on." So I started writing these tongue-in-cheek emails on what we were doing over there. Everything from, learning how to fly in Vietnam, to the weather, to dealing with the culture of an Asian country, and just did it tongue-in-cheek. And then if I didn't write for 3 or 4 days, I'd get these emails going, "Hey, what's going on? Send us some more." And, "Oh, by the way, Bob wants you to add him to the email list, and Susan wants you to be added to." And all of a sudden, I had 300 or 400 people on this email list, and I was just doing these page and a half, tongue in cheek. Somebody hit a pig in the middle of the night because the pig got loose, and things like that. And when I got back, everybody's like, "You need to write a book. You write so well, not as far as structurally, but as far as storytelling." They go, "You need to sit down and write a book." So that's what I did. I sat down and pulled everything together, and thought about all the things that had happened to me as in my flying career. And then part of the book, I took these horribly written emails and put them into a chapter all by themselves. And it's actually one of the favorite chapters when people read the book. That's one of their favorite chapters that they like to read, is those emails. So that's how I got started writing.
That's a great way to start, because you had an audience that was encouraging and you were able to hone your craft.
And hopefully I'm getting better and better at it every time I put pen to paper.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. So tell me, what does your writing space look like?
Well, it's my computer's sitting on the kitchen table, plugged in with a power cord, and I got a stack of scrap piece of paper that I make little notes so I don't forget, so I make sure I got somebody's name spelled correctly. Every time I go to put the name in, I make sure I'm using the right name for the right character. And 3 or 4 pens, a mouse, and a, what do you call that? Wi-Fi keyboard. And I work on a MacBook Air.
And do you have a specific time of day that you like to write?
Currently I've been writing about, this time between 1 and 3. This is my downtime. And then when I'm in another spot, I write in the morning. But it all gets predicated on I'm down here in Florida right now, and so in the morning I'm like out taking a walk and enjoying the beautiful weather. At the same time, I'm thinking about the storyline and the manuscript, and where do I need to work on? What do I need to improve? Could I add this to it? How would I do that? And then when I get back to my RV, I have a iced tea, sit down, and try to because I'm on my second manuscript, try to flesh it out a little bit.
It sounds like it's a nice plan. I like the idea of being able to just go outside, take your time, and then come back and sip some tea and make some changes.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll stare at the computer for 15 minutes and write 2 words, and other times I'll start typing, and 2.5 hours later I got 10 pages. It's just how it flows sometimes.
That's true. I agree with you. Sometimes I am definitely more prolific than others. Tom, how could people get in touch with you?
They can get a hold of me through, I didn't write that down. That's going to get me in trouble, isn't it? Well, they can get a hold of me by going to Thomas.Lee, all little letters. It's Lee, Thomas.Lee, Lee 968 at gmail.com.
All right. Well, Tom, are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions?
I think I am. I hope I am.
All right. Well, what's currently on your nightstand that you're reading?
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers. Nice. Is that like the movie? Do you know?
Yeah, well, the movie actually follows the book pretty well, and it's the 3rd time, maybe the 4th time I'm reading through it. I like the concept of duty and country kind of thing, not necessarily the blow them up, blast stuff, but it's the concept of you can't vote unless you're willing to serve your country. I think that's a very noble concept.
Very good. Well, I like the movie very much. It's an old one. I recommend it to anybody who wants to spend a nice Saturday afternoon doing not much. If it's raining outside, it's a good way to spend an afternoon. And what was the last movie you saw?
It was the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible Fallout.
All right. And your final question. Do you keep memorabilia?
Yes. Well, I guess so. My memorabilia is maps, old maps. So is that collecting or is that memorabilia?
I guess it depends if you used it or if it reminds you of something.
Oh, the maps remind me of places I've been and the things I've done.
I used to have a giant map of the world on our living room wall, and we would watch the news and literally put pins wherever the news was.
Yes, it's very similar. Like I had gone to Budapest, and now I have a map of Budapest, and it's a 200-year-old map, and much of that city is still relatable to that 200-year-old map because it really hasn't changed much because it's such an old city. So it's fascinating to look at the map and know where. Oh, I was there. I know the Budapest castle, stuff like that.
I imagine all those travels help you with your writing as well.
Oh yes, they do. People read some of my stuff and they go, "Where do you come up with this?" I'm like, "I was there. I was physically there." I embellish my stories quite a bit, but so you can write, when you sit in a lounge chair, you can write about the lounge chair because you sat there, kind of thing.
That's true. Well, Tom Lee, thank you so much for stopping by.
Well, I appreciate you having me on your podcast, Allison, and I hope you do very well with all these.
Thank you. I have a lot of fun. And if you want to be on the podcast, just email floridawriterpodcast@gmail.com. This has been Allison Nissen with another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. Allison out.
Thomas Lee, writing under the name Tom Lee, is an American novelist. He earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree from Michigan State University and has written 2 novels. He contributed to an anthology by Steve Lane Smith called Reaper's Lament. At various times, Tom lived in Japan, Okinawa, Vietnam, in addition to the United States. Growing up in a military family with 6 brothers and sisters, packing and unpacking became second nature to him. There is a Turtle on the Runway and Other Flying Stories was his first book. It continued his tongue-in-cheek approach from his flying story emails that he began when he was in Vietnam. He enjoys writing in different genres. As he puts it, it expands your universe to go down different roads and is fun to escape reality through the written word. His latest book, Nothing to Hide, is a fiction crime espionage story with political overtones. He's currently working on a sequel tentatively titled Murder at the Brake Pad. For more information on the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web at floridawriters.org.